Fuji Speedway then for qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix. A challenging circuit in many ways. So it's going to be a hot finish to this World Championship season. We could have a grandstand finish here. So it's very, very tight indeed down there.
It's all about Lewis Hamilton.
And he takes it! Lewis Hamilton has found the speed that he needed. He was given the most monumental challenge by the Ferrari, but he just found the speed.
And now it's race day for the Japanese Grand Prix. Fuji Speedway, 2.8 miles, 16 corners and a 1 mile pit straight in the foothills of Mount Fuji. It's a spectacular setting for a very important race in this year's Formula One World Championship. Welcome to the show. Steve Ryder stayed back in the UK for ITV's coverage of yesterday's England versus Kazakhstan match, so I get to do his job. How good is that? Well, we'll find out. You'll recognise my teammate here, for this part of the show anyway, Mark Blundell. Mark, we started around 250 Grand Prix between us. We even got to the end of a few of them. I'm not sure how I'd cope with the pressure that is on 23-year-old Lewis Hamilton's shoulders this afternoon.
I think you're right. I think, you know, don't forget we got to a few podiums in our time, several of them, but at the same point, we never went for a world championship, and I think there's a big difference there. I also have to say, though, that there's a big team of people around Lewis Hamilton these days. A modern Grand Prix driver's got psychologists, he's got people looking after him in many, many ways, and there's a big support factor behind him. But a young guy, 23 years old, I have to also say he takes a lot of pressure on his shoulders and runs with it.
Kimi Räikkönen alongside him on the grid.
Well, he's one guy who knows all about the pressure of winning a championship because he is the current world champion. And I think he's going to make it very difficult indeed today for Lewis Hamilton. I think this could be the most important start of Lewis Hamilton's life because this start today could make or break his world championship run to the end of this season.
Well, before we go any further, let's take a look at the drivers' standings. With 30 points still available, mathematically, any one of the top 5 could still win the World Championship. In reality, it's Hamilton, 7 points ahead of Massa, and Kubica a distant third. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have a 1 precious point lead over Ferrari, with BMW Sauber keeping them very honest, just 14 points adrift. James Allen takes a look at yesterday's qualifying session that established today's grid lineup.
With 3 races to go, the pressure on the title contenders is turned up a notch. Now every sector of every lap has to be right, as one slip can hand a big advantage to the opposition. The session started on a drying track after heavy morning rain.
I think perhaps in the past I have done a perfect lap. I wouldn't say that was a perfect lap, but it was near enough perfect. It was really good for the first and second sector, and in the last sector I lost just a little bit in the last corner, but it didn't really cause me. It didn't lose me too much, so I was very happy with it. And the weather got better. The car was feeling good, and it's put us, me and Heikki, in a strong position.
We try to win and we see what happens, but I mean it's not going to be easy. And usually the car at least has been stronger in the race than in qualifying. So we'll see what we can do. I think we should have a good chance to challenge for a win, and it's going to be a long race.
Our car is very consistent in all kind of conditions. I think we can expect to challenge for the victory in every kind of conditions, whether it's rain or dry or low grip, high grip, soft tire, hard tire, whatever. I think we will be there.
Fourth is a very nice position to start, but we need to be realistic, knowing that Massa is 5th, and probably we will lose this position, and the podium remains very difficult. But maybe top 5 is possible for us behind the 2 big teams, Ferrari and McLaren. So this is our main target.
Q1 and Q2 the car was great. In Q3 I don't know what happened. I didn't have the grip. I couldn't have the same balance as before. So maybe it's the fuel, maybe it's something else.
And so the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix. On pole position for the 6th time this season, equaling his total from last year, Lewis Hamilton, Kimi Räikkönen alongside him. Then it's Kovalainen and Alonso on row 2. Row 3, Felipe Massa with a lot of work to do, and Robert Kubica. The 2 Toyotas are together on row 4, Jarno Trulli and Timo Glock. Then it's the 2 Toro Rossos, Sebastian Vettel and Sebastian Bourdais. David Coulthard starts 11th with Nelson Piquet alongside him. Webber's 13th for the 2nd race in a row. He has Nakajima for company. Then it's Rosberg and Heidfeld, his worst qualifying for 61 races. Barrichello and Button, the Hondas not firing here in Japan. And at the very back, the 2 Force Indias, Sutil and Fisichella.
Lewis Hamilton takes us through that pole position lap later in the programme. Of course, Hamilton can't win the championship here today, but nor can Felipe Massa, and he starts 5th on the grid.
You know, it's a big problem for Massa. It's a disaster in many ways, and I think the other thing for me is when Massa starts at the front, he runs off in the distance. But when he starts a little bit further down the pack, you never really see him drive through, and that's a concern. But the other thing today, don't forget, this is the first time we're probably going to see a dry race run here with a modern-day Formula 1 car, and we're not sure whether there's going to be overtaken on this 200-mile-an-hour straight or not, and that could be a big factor for Massa to make his way through.
Yes, now how aggressive do you think he'll be down into that first corner?
He's got to be aggressive. He's got to try and get by those guys as quickly as possible. So into turn 1, into turn 2 at least, he's got to try and make up a place or 2. Saying that, he's got to be careful. If he has a bit of damage to the front nose or he gets tapped, then he's in even bigger problems.
I don't understand how a car can change in the few minutes between qualifying 2 and qualifying 3. What do you think happened?
You know, we've had that before. You go out in the car, maybe you've got a set of tyres not quite in tune with each other. You maybe just put a little bit foot wrong during the sector and you screw 2 or 3 attempts out the lap. But, you know, psychologically, I think he just didn't have the upper hand. I think the man who did was Hamilton, and he made it pay.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Alonso can make his way, Massa can make his way through towards the front of the field. A man who knows him very well indeed is Rob Smedley, and Louise caught up with him.
Felipe Massa used to have a reputation for being quick but extremely erratic, a very different driver to the one who's now fighting Lewis Hamilton for the World Championship. Massa's a polished act these days, and that's partly thanks to his straight-talking race engineer, 34-year-old Rob Smedley from Middlesbrough.
He helps in everything you're doing, you know. So he can be my engineer, he can be my psychologist, you know, he can be my friend. So that's why I think he's very successful.
Well, primarily as a driver, he's just, you know, improved from black to white. He's improved 100% really. You know, he was always really quick, but a little bit wild at times, you know. I mean, it's well documented. But he kind of matured his approach to what he had to do.
And we saw that in Singapore, where Massa's measured response to the team's blunder illustrated his new strength.
Probably 4 or 5 years ago, with a Latin temperament and being a little bit younger and all the rest of it, you know, the toys would have come out the pram and he would have, you know, had a bit of a tip. But he's a lot better, you know. He's matured a lot and he understands that he's in it for the long haul and it's not just for the, you know, the sprint. And I think that he learnt a lot from just watching Michael and watching how Michael operated and what was the correct way to go about winning a world championship.
He doesn't see me as a driver, Formula 1 driver, like many people normally see, and sometimes they are a little bit afraid to say or to do. You know, I think that's very important, you know, to have somebody which, if you make a good thing, so he's very happy and he's with you, and if you're a bad thing, to show you that you were wrong. I think that's is very important for the professional side as well.
You mentioned his Latin temperament. You've got a very much a sort of northern, no-nonsense approach. Does that ever lead to any friction between you?
No, not really. It's quite an easy relationship. I think if I've done anything for him, it's to kind of err him in that direction of being a little bit calmer about things and, you know, a little bit cooler under pressure.
I think, you know, our relationship is more as brothers than as really just professional. I mean, he's like my engineer in the professional side. He knows everything about me, I know everything about him, but also in the private side he knows everything. So he knows that maybe sometimes if I have a problem in my private life, that it can affect in the driving as well.
He's won more races than any other driver this year, but the big prize is still up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean, Felipe is quite hungry, you know, he wants it. He knows that he's capable of winning the World Championship. He knows that he's in a car that's capable of winning the World Championship. I think that he's improving year on year. You know, he improves year on year, not only as a driver, but also as a person and how he conducts himself. And you know, he just keeps going from strength to strength.
Mark, the driver-engineer relationship needs to be like a good marriage, doesn't it?
It has to be very strong, and sometimes that combination doesn't actually work. You get an engineer and a driver together and they just don't hit it off. And if you don't get that working, it's, you know, disastrous for the team because you make no progress. If the two personalities clash, and it's not just on personality, it is indeed that engineering depth, that understanding of each other, what the driver requires and what the driver wants from the engineer in terms of information fed back and how he can improve his car.
But there's a third person in that relationship, the data analysis engineer too.
Yeah, very much so. Data analysis now is a big topic for these modern day Formula One cars. Those guys are an important element. There's just little bits of information that they study hard and fast, and they do comparisons to the teammates, and they can deliver that back into the driver-engineer combination and really give them a good idea of where they're slow and where they can improve.
Starting the engine, having a good time there for us. Now, there are 1,000 people in these top teams, probably 100 of them come to the Grand Prix. The driver's only really the final link in the chain.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's a great contribution by everybody in the team, but when it comes to Sunday afternoon and that couple of hours of Grand Prix racing, that pressure sits on the driver's shoulders, and very often he'd probably sit with $20–25 million of investment for that one Sunday afternoon Grand Prix.
Well, looking at the sky, we've heard for days now it's going to be a dry race, but it's quite cloudy out there. Of course, last year's race was absolutely treacherous with heavy rain and in virtually impossible conditions. Let's take a look back.
The 2007 Japanese Grand Prix, the scene of one of Lewis Hamilton's greatest victories. With Mount Fuji shrouded in mist and the rain pouring down, this was the day the 22-year-old Englishman came of age as a top-line F1 driver. So this Japanese Grand Prix going to start behind the safety car.
We've got a Ferrari off already, aquaplaning off the road. That is one of the craziest decisions I think I've ever seen, to put intermediates on.
It was a mistake. I mean, before the start, the rain was completely stopped, so we took the gamble.
We're being told that the safety car will come in this lap. And it's a question of when does Lewis put the hammer down.
It was really difficult because you couldn't see a thing. I really wish I could show everyone exactly how it felt. I mean, I'm sure you saw the onboard cameras. Just imagine that in the helmet.
And we are racing at Fuji Speedway. Heidfeld has had a problem.
Jensen was up the inside and Heidfeld turned in. Verts lost it, under braking then.
Oh no, there is Lewis Hamilton.
Kvyat has gone for the inside normal racing line and just understeered clean into Lewis, who would not have seen that one coming at all.
One of the two main championship contenders, Fernando Alonso, has hit the wall.
Vettel has run into the back of Mark Webber while they've been warming tyres and brakes.
Kubica and Massa are battling here.
I think we both play very aggressive, but quite nice.
Fortunately, I saw Massa on the last lap, so I went wide and we touched. If he would give me half meter, I would manage to go, but unfortunately he didn't saw me probably.
It has been one of the most difficult and treacherous Grand Prix in the history of Formula One racing. Lewis Hamilton wins the Japanese Grand Prix.
Well, last year's race was very memorable for Toro Rosso, mostly for the wrong reasons. But Gerhard, two cars in the top 10 here today. You could be set for a good result, couldn't you?
Yeah, it was another great result. Very important that we can show that our performance is not a one-day performance, that it's going on now since 5-6 races. And to have both under the first 10 yesterday was great.
You're lining up 9th and 10th. In fact, the times throughout the weekend have been really close. Does that mean that we're set for some pretty close racing today as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we are 9 and 10, but we know we have a good fuel load on the car. So I believe a couple of cars in front of us are a bit lighter. So that explains the difference, or lap time difference yesterday. So I hope we can go with the train and can fight for some good points.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Tremendous end to the season for Toro Rosso. Mark, what kind of race strategies are you expecting this afternoon?
I mean, it's going to be interesting because I think you've got Kimi Raikkonen who's on a little bit lower fuel load, and I think he's going to try and go off in the distance and create that pace and see if he can draw Hamilton into getting himself a little bit excited and trying to make a move and put him under pressure. I think you've got Alonso, canny guy, been on good form of late, come off the back of his Grand Prix win in Singapore. I think he's somebody to watch. I think they may play something a bit special to try and pick up the pieces come the end of this race distance.
Tyres will play a critical part as always.
Yeah, tyres actually a big thing today because, you know, air temperature, track temperature's coming down as we even stand here. That's not going to be advantageous for Ferrari. They're going to be concerned about that. But even so, across the board, everybody's complaining about high tyre wear, rear tyres especially. Cars are going to start getting loose towards the end of their stint on their tyres. May get a little bit squirrely out there. A couple of guys might make a couple of moves.
Green stripes on the tyres, what's that all about?
It's environmental friendly stuff. I mean, basically Bridgestone are trying to promote the environmental side of the sport. I think they're doing a good job so far. You know, why not put it around the tyre and let everybody see what they're up to?
Well, McLaren lead both championships at the moment. They desperately need to take one of those this year. Ted has been looking into it.
Mika Häkkinen wins in Japan. He is world champion.
The Japanese Grand Prix has been a happy hunting ground for McLaren, but Ron Dennis still had brown hair when they last won a Drivers' Championship, and it's been 10 years since their last Constructors' Championship. A decade of failing to reach their ultimate goal, and battered by a spy scandal, the frustration of coming so close last season has hardened McLaren's resolve to deliver, and they're determined not to throw it away again.
We will strategically race, there's no question. We want, most important thing is to come out of this with more points than Massa, and obviously his grid position could see him hampered in the early part of the race, so you know, we've got the pace and we're going to try and put it to very good use.
I'm going out for the win for sure. That's in my nature. You saw it last year and you'll see it again this year. But I just think I'm perhaps a little bit more a bit wiser, and I definitely am looking to the championship rather than just this race in itself.
Kovalainen. Ron has actually told me, you know, that you drive like you want, you know, you decide what you want to do, but there's not much I can do. He needs to do his job, and you know, I'll try to score the maximum points for the team that I can.
Kimi Raikkonen kissed goodbye to his championship in the Singapore wall, and you can tell he isn't exactly thrilled about helping out his teammate.
He needs to win it from himself, really. Okay, I can probably help on some areas, but if something can be done, probably it will be.
But it was Ferrari themselves who dealt Massa's title chances a potentially fatal blow. In a pressure situation, the chief mechanic took his thumb off the traffic light button, turning the light green while the fuel hose was still on. He realised his mistake and almost tried to stop the car with his foot, but the error cost Felipe Massa the win. So if McLaren are seeking redemption for 9 years without a championship, Ferrari just want to make amends for possibly depriving Felipe Massa of his chance.
Mark, we're both ex-McLaren drivers, although I spent my paycheck quite a long time ago. Why haven't they won a championship in so many years?
That's a good question. I think they've had a lot going on over the years. They've had the issue with Ferrari and all of that, what went on over the past couple of seasons. They've had a couple of drivers with Alonso and Montoya who have been a little bit destabilising. And reliability has been a key issue for them. Saying that, they've been very good performance-wise in terms of winning Grand Prix, but not stringing them together to get a World Championship under their belt. This season looks like it's going to be a good one for them, constructors and drivers.
So Hamilton and Kovalainen seems a good match for you then?
I think they're a good combination. I probably would like to see a little bit more strength coming out of Kovalainen to push Lewis even more, but you know, McLaren never underestimate, and they've got great depth in the team. The individuals, as we know, are strong individuals and they'll get the most out of their people.
But they clearly seem to have more confidence as well at the moment, much more so than last year.
I think so. I think they know where they're heading this time, and they've got a lot more understanding of what they've got with their car and with their driver package, and there's a little bit more experience from last year learned, and it's paying off.
Well, as Lewis Hamilton goes to the grid this afternoon, he'll have a 7-point advantage in the championship, and that's because of the result 2 weeks ago in Singapore. Let's take a look back at that magnificent race.
Well, the scene is set then. Now comes the main event. Not a title deciding race, but potentially an opportunity for one of the main title contenders to put some daylight between himself and his rivals. The first ever Formula One night race is go! Massa on the left, Hamilton on the right. Watch out for Raikkonen attacking Hamilton. He goes to the inside of Hamilton. Hamilton's seen him now. He comes across. But it looks like everyone's safely through turn one. Massa away in the lead.
Okay, you need to pass truly, otherwise it'll be the end of the day.
Now Rosberg Takes his line, smashes it up the inside. Has he done enough? Yes, he has. Nice move by Nico Rosberg. Excellent. And there's Alonso, who has to attack.
We can do it, guys. We can do it.
The first ever Formula One night race is proving quite a spectacle. In comes Alonso. He did go aggressive. It didn't really count for much, and now he's going to slip back behind all the traffic. That's Nelson Piquet, and that is likely, I would have thought, to bring out a safety car. Alonso is the one in the pound seats at the moment, and this could be quite a turning point of the race. Pit lane still closed. Anybody who is due a pit stop is going to be really sweating. They're going to have to come in and take a penalty.
Pit lane is now open. They can pit if they can get around on the fuel that they've got.
Oh no, that's a big mistake. Massa's gone. He's taken the hose with him as well, I think. It's extremely hard to say whose fault that was. Poor old Felipe Massa. The green flag is out. The race is resumed here in Singapore. Robert Kubica is going to pay the price here. His race is well and truly ruined. As in comes Rosberg, the race leader, to serve his 10-second stop-and-go penalty.
And Hamilton down the inside into 7. He's got the job done.
Oh, what a beautiful move by Lewis Hamilton. That was magnificent. It's looking really good here for an Alonso victory. Oh, it's the wall. Goes the Ferrari of Kimi Räikkönen from 5th place. So it's going to be no points for Ferrari here.
Lewis Hamilton looks like a man very happy with the lowest step on the podium to me.
The man who many regard at the moment as the best pound-for-pound driver in Formula One, Fernando Alonso, coming through to take the checkered flag and claim a very, very well-deserved victory in Formula One's first ever night race.
Well done, Fernando. Fantastic drive. Well done. Perfect.
Well done, guys. Well done. Super car all weekend.
Well, it was indeed a supercar all weekend, and I saw this guy in the pit lane after the race, and he said, "We're back." How long did that joy after that race stay with you, and how long before you had to return to work?
Returned to work on the Tuesday, I think. Flew back Monday night, returned to work Tuesday morning. So still going there. We're still going well, so we're still happy with things.
Felt pretty good though, didn't it?
Yeah, it was good. It was nice to get a win, and nice to get. Okay, we were very lucky. Let's make no mistake of that. But we were quick as well. And once he got there, no one was going to touch him. So that felt good.
What can Fernando do today, Alan?
He's honest with fuel. He's quick. We're looking for a podium, to be honest. It all depends on what happens with the sort of big guys at the front, where Massa's going. He's behind us obviously at the moment. With the 2 McLarens in front, we need a little bit of luck, but we're quick. We're happy.
Good stuff. Have a good race. Thanks very much.
We're 5 or so minutes now before the cars head towards the grid. What are the final preparations for the drivers?
I mean, they're trying to get their thoughts together. They're still absorbing information from the engineers. They're analysing the weather conditions. You know, at some point, they normally get a guy with a microphone, sticks it under their nose as well. So, you know, Lewis Hamilton would be quite thankful that you're not out on the grid today, probably.
Absolutely. They've got a raft of people around them, haven't they, for nutrition, for the physio, for everything.
Yeah, it's a set routine, and it's very much a plan what they run through. You know, these guys are athletes, and at the same time they're also having to make sure that they just say hello to the CEO of a sponsor and then get their head in gear and go out and drive a Grand Prix distance. So they're remarkable guys, they really are.
Yes, they've got to be all things to all men, haven't they? Well, as always, we have a competition this weekend, and here are the details.
This weekend, we're giving you the chance to win a VIP trip for 2 to the 2009 Santander British Grand Prix on the 20th and 21st of June, where you'll watch all the action just feet away from Beckett's Corner. You'll be given a pair of VIP Santander and Abbey club tickets for both qualifying and race day, where you can enjoy gourmet lunch, unlimited champagne and VIP guest appearances while enjoying the best view of the circuit. You'll also have transport to Silverstone from anywhere in the UK and accommodation on Saturday night. Over to you, Lewis.
To be in with a chance of winning this great prize, courtesy of Santander and Abbey, just answer this question correctly. Who won last year's Japanese Grand Prix? Is it A, David Coulthard, B, Jenson Button, or C, me, Lewis Hamilton?
To enter, call 09049 596789. Calls cost £1 from a BT landline. Calls from other networks may be higher and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or text the word F1 and your answer A, B or C to 63337. Text costs £1 plus one standard network rate message. Digital, satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing their red button now. You can also enter for free at itv.com until 5 p.m. on Friday the 17th of October. Entrance must be 18 or over and lines close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 14th of October. Entries made after closing time won't be counted but may still be charged.
Christian, neither car qualified in the top 10. Is that a bit of a disappointment to you?
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, David did a good job yesterday. It was one of his better sessions. He missed out by 800ths. Mark just didn't get a lap together, unfortunately. Potential was there to be in the top, top 10, top 8. Didn't happen for us. It's given us freedom of strategy for today, but would have preferred to have been a bit higher up the grid. But got all the Red Bulls together. Going to be an interesting first corner.
David's 11th, Mark 13th. He was somewhat disappointed with that, I got the impression. Frustrated with himself.
I think that's an understatement. He was obviously not very happy to be 13th on the grid. He felt good in the car in the morning. Yesterday, on Friday, went well. And it just didn't come together. He didn't get a lap, all his sectors together. And the grid's so tight at the moment, when you do that, you can be 6th or you can be 16th. And, unfortunately, 13th was the net result yesterday.
Hope it goes better for him today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lewis Hamilton on pole position, of course, but he needs to get off the line, doesn't he?
He does, and I think that's going to be in his thoughts. He's getting into his car right now. He's going to be thinking about who's next to him, and it is Kimi Raikkonen. And Raikkonen's really out the World Championship hunt now, but he can make a big difference in what goes on for the remainder of this season, because if he tightens up on Lewis going into one, he makes it really difficult for him. Maybe even they touch wheels or something, who knows?
Well, Raikkonen says Massa's got to win his own championship. He'll help him if he can. But surely he won't play games, will he, against Lewis?
I don't know. I think there's a little bit of, teamwork they're going to go on. He's staying at Ferrari. He's got to make sure he does everything he can to give Massa an advantage. And if he's going to make life difficult for Lewis Hamilton, that's going to be the start of that.
Be interested to see what the stewards would have to say about that one.
Oh, well, that's another story, isn't it? We'll have to wait and see. But, hopefully we have a clean run into turn one. But it will definitely be on Hamilton's mind. And he also knows that Ferrari can out-drag him going into turn one. We've seen it done before.
Yes, I'd be sure that he's been told don't fight too hard with Raikkonen. And he said, obviously, he'll be keeping an eye on his mirrors for Massa too. What kind of damage can Alonso do in there? Because he's just driving for himself, the World Championship, no interest to him at all.
No, I think he's going to be driving for himself, as you say, and I think he knows that he's got a car underneath him, which is quite capable now of getting on the podium. And I think he'll be watching those guys at the front and seeing if he can pick up those pieces. He's a clever guy. He's not going to make it easy for Massa, but in many ways, maybe he might make it a little bit easy, because let's not forget, there's no love affair between Hamilton and Alonso. Those guys are not the best of buddies, and I don't think he's going to hand anything on the plate to Lewis.
I don't think it'd be...
It is a lot more down onto those straight 200 miles an hour slipstreaming each other. And it's going to be interesting to see who's got the big amount of guts to go into turn one and outbrake.
Yes, as we watch them doing their practice starts to get the data there so that the engineers can tell them the clutch settings on the grid and just how they might get these cars away. Remember, this year the drivers have to play a much bigger role in how the car moves away from the line. You're talking about slipstreaming. That could be critical here in the race.
Yeah, very much so. It's going to be a key part. And as you say, they've just seen the guys come off the start line, and you can see the green stripes on the Bridgestone tyres there, the environmental friendly stripes. What they do on a track, I don't know, but they look a bit different.
Lewis Hamilton just moving out behind us there, and I wonder what's going through his mind right now. This is it, isn't it?
This is a massive amount of pressure, and you've got to say, any sporting event, any sportsman that get to this level, I'm not so sure. I've never had these thoughts go through my mind. Not for a World Championship in Formula One. I'd certainly like to.
Well, it's a long pit straight, as we've talked about, and a bit of a headwind today. Of course, they're locked off with their 7th gear after Parc Fermé. So I wonder if we're going to see any of them with a gear ratio that's a bit too long. Slipstreaming is going to be crucial.
Yeah, again, it's going to be a big problem, because there's a big possibility they might hit the limiter. And once they hit that rev limiter, if it's a hard limiter, it actually stagnates their speed. So a couple of guys might fall into that trap.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mark. Well, I've got to head up to the commentary box shortly. We're going to look at Lewis Hamilton's pole position lap soon, and we'll see you after the break. Lewis, congratulations on pole position. It's getting a critical time in this year's World Championship. Did you feel a lot of pressure before you went out to do that final lap?
I didn't. All weekend I've felt pretty relaxed and approaching it the same as I have in the last most of the season. I think if you come to this race and you feel the pressure, then that's when things go wrong. So just try to stay cool and do the job.
Okay, Lewis, let's take a look at the lap then.
This lap is obviously important to make sure you get a really good exit and making sure that you're shifting perfectly every way all the way down the straight. And you'll see that I take my hands off the steering wheel to just tighten my belts. It kind of keeps your mind straight and making sure that you're ready for the lap. And so here you're just waiting for the breaker point.
To spot a braking.
Yep, and you brake just after the 100-meter sign. Hopefully no lockups. There's not no lockup there for once. And there the camera changes as well, so then you get on the power. Good exit. I got pole.
Talk about the shifts. You mean getting close to the rev limiter without actually touching it?
Yeah, we have to. Obviously, we're allowed to shift rev up to 19,000 RPM, and if you short shift, you lose a bit of time. And we're talking, thousandths of a tenth. So it's important that you shift perfectly at the lights and perfectly when as late as possible. If you hit the limiter again, you lose time. So making sure you get all those shifts perfect just gains you that little bit more time down the straight.
How important was that lap for your World Championship chances?
Well, there's a lot of everyone keeps asking questions about the World Championship, and it's difficult to say. This time last year, obviously we were doing well, similar position, but I think I was feeling pressure. I was tired from the season. I hadn't managed myself correctly, and this year I've sacrificed so much more than I did last year, and I'm just in a much better position mentally and physically. And for sure, this is a very important pole position. The first part's out of the way. We need to make sure that we score maximum points, especially in the position with the other drivers. Heikki's right behind me. He hopefully will be able to take points from Kimi and from Felipe, and again that will put us in an even better position.
Once the race is underway, will you want to know where Massa is in the Grand Prix?
No, I don't. For me, it's not. It's irrelevant. I think what's important is that I focus on my job. At the end of the race, you can have a look and see where everyone else came, but. I'm not out there just racing him. I'm racing everyone that's behind me. So I look on the pit. I see the pit board. I can perhaps see people behind me. The only information that I want is if I'm losing time to someone else who's quicker. Where am I losing it? Is it sector 1, sector 2, sector 3? And usually that's what they give me. So then I'm able to try and improve that sector.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, down here on the grid with Lewis's teammate Heikki Kovalainen. How's the track coming to the grid, Heikki?
Looks very similar to yesterday. Nothing has changed really, and just a little bit cooler temperature, but everything is fine at the moment.
What's that cooler temperature going to mean for the way you use your tyres versus Ferrari?
I think it's difficult to say. I think the trend has been that we have been able to warm them up a little bit better than them, but the first lap of the race, or at the beginning of the race, I don't think it's such a big issue. It's normally more of an issue in qualifying, and then after a couple of laps, everybody gets them up to temperature, and they have a strong car, so. I don't expect it to be a deciding factor today.
Have you been looking down to this first corner? It's quite far. It's about the distance, Hungary, something like that? How are you going to play it?
Yeah, it's a long way to the first corner. I'll try to get a good start and brake late, and if I can overtake someone, then great. If not, then make sure that I keep my position, but it's nothing unusual. Sometimes the straight is long, sometimes it's short. Just always just try to find a good way to go around the first corner and get a good start for the race.
Okay, Heikki, have a good one. Thanks very much.
So a chilly day here in Fuji Motor Speedway, 16 degrees the air temperature, the track temperature 21. That's certainly not going to help the Ferrari team very much. They don't like these chilly days. They find it difficult to get their tyres warmed up. Well, the Japanese race fans embrace Formula One with a kind of hysterical fanaticism. It's almost more of a craze here than a sporting passion. Among the 100,000 or so fans packed into Fuji Speedway, there's none of the zen calmness which this country is traditionally famous for. Instead, as we've been hearing, it's the McLaren and Ferrari teams who are trying to stay calm as this exceptional championship season enters its final decisive phase. And there's plenty of other people, of course, who've got something to say about this afternoon's race, not least from my point of view. Very interested to see what the winner of the last Grand Prix in Singapore, Fernando Alonso, might do. And we can go down to the grid and hear from him. He's with Louise.
Well, he was the man of the moment at the Singapore Grand Prix. Fernando, how much of a boost was that victory for you and the team as a whole?
Very much a huge help, I think, because we always believe in ourselves, but you know, after one win, I think the whole team is full motivated now to keep working, and now the results are coming, you know, and now we are second row of the grid again here in Japan, so you know, very happy and very thanks to the team for the improvement of the year.
Second row, you're starting P4 and with a driver that in theory should be in front of you behind you, Felipe Massa. How tricky is it going to be to keep him behind you though?
It will be very difficult, especially at the start, because we know that Ferrari has a very good start. He is on the clean side, so I need to do a defending start more than an aggressive one. So I hopefully can keep this fourth position in 10-1, and then we'll see from there.
Is that the podium possible?
Yes, nothing is impossible in Formula One. We saw in Singapore, so I'm starting fourth, so I only need one place to be on the podium, so it's easier than some other times.
Hope it goes well, thanks.
Thank you, Louise. Just looking at Jean Todt there with Michelle Yeoh, his fiancée. Jean Todt, the former boss of the Ferrari team. Of course, Stefano Domenicali now runs the operation, who was Todd's number 2. And he likes to come along. He's increasingly coming along, and there's some rumours going around that he may have an involvement on the FIA side in the near future. And watch this space. Well, I mentioned the enthusiasm of the Japanese fans. There they are, all waving. And I wonder if they're waving at Mark Webber. He's down on the grid.
Yeah, down here with Mark Webber. How's the car feeling? You're out of position, Christian Horner was saying earlier, compared to where the pace is.
Yeah, Q2 didn't go that well for us. We are out of position, and going through the strategies this morning, I've very quickly learned that it's not much fun qualifying out of position because there's not many strategies you can do to generally get yourself out of the poo. So we've chosen one, and we'll see how it goes.
Now, I wanted to ask you, apparently Robert Kubica has been shooting his mouth off about Lewis, trying some real aggressive moves on the track. Lewis almost pushed you off at Monza. Do you feel the same way? You think Lewis is overdoing it a bit?
It's not exactly on my mind at the moment, to be honest, but there's been a few close ones here and there, but it's the nature of the beast, I suppose.
You're all out there racing. You're going to give it some today. Who do you think you can really get up close and personal to?
Well, the first corner is going to be lots of wheels and side pods close by, obviously, so we'll just get through that as best we can, hopefully, and settle into the first of a few stints. Let's see how many we got.
Cheers, Mark.
Mark Webber there, starting 13th on the grid today. There's Ron Dennis, the boss of the McLaren Mercedes team, and a man who desperately wants to bring home a world championship after a lot of near misses over the years. It is 10 years, well, 1999, 10 seasons since they won a Drivers' World Championship. Just picking up there, Martin, on what the question that Ted was asking Mark Webber. There has this weekend been quite a lot of chat, most of it emanating from Robert Kubica, about Lewis Hamilton's tactics on the road. I think he's referring back particularly to Monza, where he pushed Glock off onto the grass and what have you, and was a bit strong with Alonso and what have you. What's your view? I mean, the drivers used to criticise Michael Schumacher for being aggressive and arrogant and what have you on the track. And do you feel that Hamilton deserves this kind of this level of criticism?
I was surprised by that because I thought Kubica was his mate, but I think that's a few years ago, and you can't really be too friendly with other Grand Prix drivers. I do think Lewis was over-aggressive in the race in Monza, and he may well have attracted a penalty, I think, had he not have been going through all the pain from Spa. But you just can't take that out of the boy. He's a born racer, and you get what you see with him. He'll go for every opportunity that he can, and that means that he will seize every tiny window of opportunity to overtake, so they better look out. Senna established himself, as did Schumacher. Senna did that with me in Formula 3. You know, I'm coming through, either you're going to let me through or we'll have an accident together. They'll go through a bit of that pain, and then they get a reputation that's in the psyche of all of the other drivers that they're coming through.
Beautiful Ferrari flag there, fluttering in the breeze. Quite a strong breeze blowing along here at Fuji. And let's go to the back of the grid now. Honda on home soil, but it's not been a great homecoming for Honda. Jenson Button is talking to Louise.
Yeah, Jenson, we're just talking about the fact that unfortunately you're quite a long way back on the grid at your home Grand Prix. What can you do from there?
Not home Grand Prix.
Well, the team's home Grand Prix.
It's going to be difficult. I mean, it's a long way back, and we've been there a few times this year, and we just got to give it our all, Rubens and myself, and stay out of each other's way, and we'll see what happens. It's really cold today, as you can tell by the jacket. So it might make a difference because the tyres are going to work differently. So we'll see.
There's been a lot of talk about tyre wear. How much of a concern is it for you?
Yeah, we had a lot of graining on the softer of the two tyres, but I think we'll be all right in this condition. So with this temperature, so it should be all right. I don't know. Nobody knows until we get out there. So we'll see what happens.
A lot of drivers were doing practice starts on their way out to the grid. I guess that's always a key, but is it more key here?
This is a circuit you can overtake on, so the start is important like everywhere else, but probably not as important as somewhere like Monaco, because you can overtake here. And yeah, starting in 18th, and hopefully we'll move up a little bit. I don't know if points are on the cards, but we'll give it a go.
See you later.
Cheers.
Well, Chris, this is going to be...
Rubens Barrichello is that man at the moment. Will it be the case next year? Who are they looking at? Jensen back in 18th on the grid. I would say normally he's racing the medical car down to the first corner that far back, but Buemi's driving the medical car and he managed to spin it off in practice, didn't he?
He did indeed. It's interesting though, although you look at the back of the grid and you say Jensen Button back there, but in fact in the first part of qualifying yesterday he was only a second slower than the pace setter. Japanese national anthem. Singing bride there on the podium. The 100,000 or so fans packed into this racetrack. And of course, this track owned by the Toyota Motor Company. Next year we go back to Suzuka, which is owned by Honda. And from then on we alternate between the two tracks just to share it around a little bit. Tremendous enthusiasm here. Big buyers of merchandise across the range as well. It's not just Honda and Toyota, Ferrari, McLaren, and all the drivers as well. Polite applause from the Japanese fans. They've been here since the early hours of this morning in anticipation of this event. And well, another man who's not had a great qualifying, in fact his worst for 61 races, is Nick Heidfeld, who finds himself way back on the grid, and Louise Goodman has found him.
Yeah, it was a bit of frustrating qualifying session for Nick. He's ended up 16th on the grid. Just tell us what went wrong for you yesterday.
Well, the biggest problem actually was not choosing the right tires. We stick to the hard tires, thinking that we would make it into Q2, but that was the wrong choice. But those things can happen.
So you've got a fair amount of overtaking to do today, but at least, as Jensen Button was just telling us, this is a track where you can get past people. Where are the places that people should be looking out for that?
Well, definitely straight line is the best places. I think the longest straight we have in the season. So breaking into turn one should be a possibility. But still, we all know Formula One, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy.
Thanks, Nick.
Welcome.
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, you can see all these drivers wearing their coats. I mentioned at the top, it's pretty parky here. The temperature's been dropping as the day's gone on. It was quite sunny this morning when we arrived at the circuit at 8:30, but not anymore. And we've seen throughout this season, Martin, that the Ferrari on a cold day struggles to get the heat into its tyres. That's clearly going to be an issue for Raikkonen and Massa. How do you see it playing out?
Well, I think McLaren are very happy that it's cold. The weather forecast, everybody's been saying it's going to be a really fine day. Those wonderful machines they have, I don't think they can see the sky from time to time, because I think when you look up and just feel how cold it is, it's somewhat different to what they anticipated. But I'm reasonably sure that that plays into the hands of McLaren. The Ferrari car is easier on its tyres. That's why it's been faster over a tyre stint in some of the Grand Prix. And probably why the McLaren can be faster in qualifying, because it heats its tyres up more quickly. But of course then it takes the life out of them more quickly too. But maybe they'll be able to make those tyres run a little bit longer. Normally, a guy, Mark Webber was alluding to it, I think, but in the second half of the field the drivers would be trying to one stop here. But the white striped softer tyre is not a great tyre. It's falling away. I think it'll do 25 laps of this 67-lap race, absolutely tops, before it's all but useless. So they've got to try and stay off that. They'll be going for the 4 green striped tyre for the first 2 stints, I'd imagine, the front runners, and then use that tyre as little as they can later on.
Yes, probably a word of explanation needed here. The the campaign this weekend, Make Cars Green. It's in conjunction with the FIA and Bridgestone, and what they've decided to do is paint green stripes on the tyres, the harder of the two Bridgestone compounds, and it's a symbolic gesture more than anything else. It's a slightly odd thing to do, but at least it gets us talking about it, I suppose. One has to applaud the initiative, if not necessarily the execution. Anyway, there's a huge grandstand just down to our right saying, "Go Jarno, go Timo." It's full of people in red Toyota jackets, thousands and thousands of them, employees, I imagine. And one of the most important people in the Toyota team is the Irishman Richard Cregan, and he's now with Louise.
He's the big boss of the team, and so far it's been going pretty well for you guys here today. Timo Glock has been right up at the timesheets for most of the weekend. What are your expectations for the race?
Well, I mean, hopefully with the strategy we have, it's gone a bit cool for the tyres for us, unfortunately. You know, we were banking on a little bit more track temperature, but we'll see how it goes. And we had a good weekend here. We had good Friday, good Saturday morning, good qualifying, so we'll see. You know, fingers crossed, and hopefully get the two of them past the first corner and then see what comes out of it.
That battle for fourth in the championship, very close, so it's important for you to get a good result here, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, we want fourth in the championship now. It would have been a big effort, and I know everybody's concentrating on the 109 car, but we're still trying to develop this one to get forward. So with a bit of luck, we'll pull it through.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, Louise.
Richard Cregan there, talking to Louise, and there's one of his drivers, Timo Glock, who's come on really strong in the second half of this season.
Yep, Glock's really improved dramatically in the second half of the season. Some very confident drives. He's keeping it on the island too, and a lot of pressure on him here. Toyota, of course, own this racetrack, and they'll be looking for a top result here in Japan, and they'll be comfortable that Honda are a long way behind them on the grid.
Certainly are. It's a very strong end to the season for Toyota, looking for fourth in the Constructors' Championship, and that is the grandstand I was telling you about. A lot of very excited employees there, being bussed in for the day. Looking forward to seeing both of their cars solidly in the points. The grid begins to clear. The anticipation of the Grand Prix begins to gather. The heart rate of the drivers just begins to step up a little bit as they contemplate being strapped into their cars and then contemplate the 67 laps, which is going to make up this Japanese Grand Prix. Second time it's been run at Fuji Speedway. So under the shadow of the 3,700-meter high mountain known as Fuji, this Grand Prix on a chilly and blustery day will be taking place very, very shortly, and we are entering the decisive phase of this Grand Prix season. Just 3 races to go, 2 championship contenders with a real say in the outcome: Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton. Massa starting 5th on the grid here this afternoon. Lewis Hamilton on pole position with Kimi Raikkonen alongside him in the second Ferrari. What will Raikkonen do? Can he spoil Hamilton's day? Can Massa pass some cars, one of which is going to be the second McLaren of Heikki Kovalainen? And can Lewis Hamilton stay out of trouble and do what he did last year, win the Japanese Grand Prix here at Fuji?